In the year 2024, speleologists discovered two cracked helmets with triple fang marks in a flooded tunnel of Mammoth Cave. Nearby, in the clay, were paw prints nearly a foot long, too large for dogs but too dog-like for anything else, and a voice recorder captured a chorus of barks coming simultaneously from different parts of the underground passage. It all began in October 2018. Three friends, Michael Henderson, 28, a programmer from Seattle, Anna Weber, 26, a photographer from Berlin, and Jason Cole, 32, a geological engineer, also from Seattle, decided to spend the weekend at Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky. They had known each other since their student days. Michael and Jason studied together at the University of Washington, and they met Anna through an online community of underground exploration enthusiasts. All three were passionate about caving and had basic training and experience exploring caves on the Pacific coast. Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky is the longest known cave system in the world. More than 400 miles of underground passages have been officially documented, but experts believe the actual length may be as much as 600 miles or more. The group signed up for the Wild Cave Tour, a specialized program for experienced cavers that allows them to explore areas of the cave inaccessible to ordinary tourists. The tour lasts between 6 and 8 hours and requires a good level of physical fitness. On Saturday, October 27th, at around 9 a.m., the friends met their guide at the park's visitor center. Their guide was Tom Griffin, an experienced ranger who had been leading groups through the wild parts of the cave for 12 years. According to Griffin, the group looked prepared and serious. Everyone had a modern caving helmet with an LED light, spare batteries, rope, carabiners, and a first aid kit. Anna carried a professional waterproof camera and an extra flash for shooting in the cave. The Wild Cave Tour route starts at the historic cave entrance and leads through a series of narrow corridors to large chambers deep within the system. For the first 2 hours, the group followed the standard route without incident. Around noon, they reached a fork in the road that rangers call the Triple Junction. Here, the main tunnel splits into 3 passages. The central one leads to the large Gothic cathedral hall, the left one to a series of small grottos, and the right one to a system of narrow corridors leading to an underground stream. It was here, according to Griffin, that Jason became interested in the rite passage. As a geologist, he wanted to explore the karst formations in this part of the cave. Anna supported the idea. She needed photographs of underground waterways for a project. Griffin explained that the rite passage was officially closed to tourist groups due to the rugged terrain and periodic flooding. But the friends insisted. They had experienced modern equipment and were willing to take full responsibility. Ultimately, an agreement was reached. The group would continue on the main route to the Gothic Cathedral Hall. After lunch, they would explore the rite passage on their own, but no further than the first kilometer, and with a mandatory return by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The lunch break passed without incident. Around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the group split up. Griffin led the other tourists to the exit via the standard route, while the 3 friends headed for the rite passage from the Triple Crossroads. According to cell phone operators, the last messages from the group were received between 7 and 8 p.m. Communication in the cave is only possible in certain areas where the signal passes through cracks to the surface. At 7:32 p.m., Michael sent a message to his girlfriend in Seattle. Found a beautiful stream. Anna is taking amazing pictures. At 7:41 p.m., Jason wrote to a colleague, "Interesting karst formations. The water is obvious." The last message came at 7:42 p.m. from Anna. She wrote to a friend in Berlin, "Someone is barking below," and a minute later added, "Smell of sulfur." By 10 p.m., when the group had not shown up at the designated meeting place, Griffin raised the alarm. The park's emergency response service organized a search operation. The first search party entered the right passage from the triple junction at 12:30 a.m. The team consisted of 4 rangers, an emergency medical technician, and 2 volunteers from the local caving club. The passage proved to be more difficult than expected. The first 200 meters were a relatively wide corridor with a flat floor. Then began a series of narrow passages between the boulders of the collapsed ceiling. In several places they had to crawl through. About a kilometer from the entrance, the passage widens into a small grotto from which the sound of water can be heard. An underground stream flows along the bottom of the cave and after a kilometer and a half flows into a larger underground river. It was in this grotto that the searchers found the first signs of the missing group. 3 pairs of boot prints were clearly visible on the wet clay near the stream. Energy bar wrappers and a plastic bottle were lying nearby. But other traces found in the same place turned out to be much stranger. The soft clay bore the imprints of the paws of some large animal. The tracks looked like those of a dog, but their size was unusual, about 23 centimeters long and about the same in width. What particularly struck the searchers was that the distance between the prints was between 100 and 115 centimeters. Such a stride is characteristic of a very large quadruped, significantly larger than any dogs or wolves that could theoretically climb into the cave. The animal's claws left deep grooves in the soft calcite on the walls of the grotto. Based on these scratches, experts later determined that the claws were at least 5 centimeters long. The animal's tracks led further along the passage, towards the underground river. The human tracks ended at the edge of the grotto. Further on, the floor became rocky and the footprints were not preserved. The search party continued along the passage. After 400 meters, the corridor narrows sharply and turns into a so-called siphon, a section where water fills the passage. Such an obstacle can only be overcome with scuba gear. At the entrance to the siphon, the searchers found a rope that had been in Jason's backpack. The rope was tied to a rock ledge and went into the water. The group had been trying to explore the flooded area. But the friends did not have scuba gear or other underwater equipment. According to all safety rules, they should not have gone into water deeper than knee-deep. The first stage of the search continued until Sunday morning, but yielded no results. Divers surveyed the siphon and flooded areas further along the passage, but found no traces of the group. By Monday, specialists from neighboring states had joined the search. In total, more than 50 people participated in the operation, including rangers, rescuers, volunteers, and dog handlers with their dogs. The dogs picked up a trail in the grotto, where they found footprints, but lost it after a few dozen meters. It is difficult for dogs to work in caves. There are many foreign smells, high humidity, and unusual acoustics. The search continued for 11 days. All known passages within a 3-kilometer radius of the last place where traces were found were examined. They combed through possible alternative exits to the surface. They checked all hospitals and motels within a 100-kilometer radius. No traces of the 3 friends were found. The case was officially classified as an accident with presumed drowning in underground waters. The families of the missing disagreed with this version. All 3 were experienced swimmers, knew the safety rules in caves, and had modern rescue equipment. The probability of all 3 drowning at the same time seemed extremely low. Michael and Jason's parents hired private investigators. Anna's family appealed to the German consul for an additional investigation, but no new facts were revealed. The case was archived as an unsolved disappearance. The official version is that the group violated safety rules, attempted to pass through a flooded area, and drowned. Underground currents carried the bodies away into inaccessible regions of the cave system, but rangers and experienced cavers had their doubts about this version. There were too many unexplained details: strange animal tracks, a rope near the siphon, the last message about barking, and the smell of sulfur. The section of the cave where the group disappeared became unofficially known as problematic. Over the next 5 years, there were several more incidents there. Tourists complained of strange sounds, unusual smells, and the feeling that someone was watching them. In 2021, the right passage from the Triple Junction was officially closed to all tourist groups. The formal reason was the discovery of unstable sections of the ceiling and the threat of collapse. The informal reason was different. Too many people returned from there frightened and refused to say what exactly had frightened them. In the spring of 2024, the situation changed. A group of hydrologists from the University of Kentucky received permission to study water flows in closed sections of the cave. They were interested in the impact of climate change on groundwater levels. The team was led by Dr. Richard Stone, a professor of geology with 30 years of experience studying karst systems. The group included 2 graduate students and a speleologist technician to ensure safety in underground conditions. The main goal of the study was to monitor an underground stream that flows through the right passage from the Triple Junction. In recent years, the water level in this stream has undergone significant changes, which could impact the stability of the surrounding cave structures. On April 7th, Stone's team entered the closed area with a complete set of research equipment. They had water level meters, samplers, underwater cameras, and instruments for analyzing chemical composition. Upon reaching the grotto with the underground stream, the researchers began installing the measuring equipment. The work required precision. The sensors had to function in conditions of high humidity and periodic fluctuations in water level. One of the graduate students, Kevin Martinez, was busy installing an underwater camera. He needed to secure the equipment in a flooded area further along, where the water was deep enough for a complete recording to take place. Martinez put on a wetsuit and entered the siphon with scuba gear, the very flooded area where searchers had found the rope of the missing group 6 years earlier. Underwater, the siphon was a relatively short tunnel, about 30 meters long. Beyond it, the passage widened again, and the water level dropped so low that it was possible to walk along the bottom. It was in this far section, about 600 feet from the main route, that Martinez made a discovery that turned the whole story of the disappearance upside down. At the bottom of the cave, partially covered with silt and stones, lay 2 caving helmets, bright yellow helmets with badly damaged shells. An aluminum flask lay nearby, crumpled and covered with deep scratches. Martinez carefully picked up the finds and brought them to the surface. Dr. Stone immediately understood the significance of the discovery. The helmets clearly belonged to the group that had disappeared in 2018. A closer inspection revealed even stranger details. The plastic shells of the helmets had deep punctures, arranged in groups of 3. Each group formed an arc-shaped pattern with a distance of about 10 centimeters between the punctures. The shape and location of the damage clearly indicated that bites caused it. However, the size and geometry did not match those of any known animal that could have been in the cave. The flask was damaged even more severely. The aluminum walls were crumpled and bitten through in several places. There were traces of teeth around the edges of the holes, long, sharp, clearly predatory. The strangest thing was that all the damage looked fresh for underground conditions. In caves, metal and plastic deteriorate very slowly due to stable temperature and humidity. These items had been underwater for 6 years, but they were preserved as if they had been damaged recently. Dr. Stone immediately contacted the park administration. By the evening of the same day, a joint team of rangers, forensic experts, and a specialist in identifying remains had descended into the cave. A thorough examination of the site revealed additional details. The identical strange paw prints that the searchers had seen 6 years ago were preserved in the clay bottom of the grotto. However, there were now significantly more tracks. The prints crossed each other in different directions, giving the impression that several large animals had passed through this area. Some of the tracks overlapped, indicating repeated visits to this site. The distance between the front and rear paws was approximately a meter, corresponding to an animal the size of a large dog or a small wolf. But the width of the paws was greater than that of any known canid. The claw prints attracted particular attention. They were significantly longer and sharper than those of ordinary predators. The scratches in the clay were up to 3 centimeters deep, which would have required exceptional strength. Among the finds was another item, a waterproof voice recorder that Anna had used to record the sounds of the cave. The device was lying in a crevice between rocks, partially hidden from direct water exposure. The recorder turned on when it was removed from the crevice. The display showed the time of the last recording, 8:17 p.m. on October 27, 2018. The recording lasted 27 seconds. For the first 10 seconds, you can hear people's voices, a man and a woman speaking quietly, their words indistinct due to the echo in the cave. Then a strange sound begins, a low growl or snarl that gradually turns into barking. But this is not ordinary dog barking. The sounds are deeper, with hoarse notes. What is particularly unusual is that the barking comes from different directions simultaneously. Acoustic analysis revealed that the sounds originate from 3 different directions, with slight time delays. This means that the sources were located at various points in the cave but barked almost simultaneously. At the end of the recording, a splash of water and a woman's scream are heard, which cut off abruptly. After that, there is complete silence. The recording was sent to bioacoustic specialists from several universities. The experts unanimously concluded that the recorded sounds did not match any known North American animal. Frequency analysis revealed that the growling exhibits characteristics typical of large predators, such as bears or big cats, but the barking is more like that of a dog, although the timbre is significantly lower than that of any domestic or wild dog. The most mysterious thing is the synchrony of the sounds coming from different directions. Such behavior is not characteristic of either solitary predators or pack animals that could inhabit caves. The findings were sent to a forensic laboratory in Louisville. Experts had to determine whether animal teeth indeed caused the damage to the helmets and flask, and if so, which animal was responsible. The results of the examination arrived 2 weeks later. The conclusion was unequivocal. All the damage was caused by the teeth of a large predator. The shape of the punctures corresponds to fangs at least 5 centimeters long. Based on the depth and nature of the damage, experts determined the approximate bite force. It was at least 200 kilograms per square centimeter, which corresponds to the jaws of a bear or a large big cat. However, the geometry of the bites did not match that of either bears or cats. The location and shape of the fangs were more like those of a dog, but the size was significantly larger than any known member of the canine family. The number of bites in particular puzzled the experts. Each object had traces of 3 separate mouths, and all the bites had identical geometry. It was as if the objects had been bitten in turn by 3 identical animals. The park administration decided to keep the examination results secret. They officially announced that the items found confirmed the accident version. The group drowned in an underground stream, and falling rocks caused the damage to the equipment. But among park employees, information about the real results of the investigation spread quickly. Rangers who had worked in the cave for many years knew that the official version did not correspond to reality. The park's old-timers recalled that strange incidents had occurred in this part of the cave before. The archives contained references to unusual sounds heard by tourists in the 1970s and 1980s. In 1974, a group of speleologists from Indiana University reported hearing dog howls deep in the Rite Passage. In 1982, a family of tourists claimed to have seen glowing eyes in one of the side branches. At the time, all these reports were dismissed as figments of the imagination, acoustic effects of the cave, or reflections from flashlights. But after the discovery in 2024, the old evidence began to be taken more seriously. Dr. Stone continued his research in this section of the cave. He was no longer interested in hydrological changes. He wanted to understand what exactly had happened to the group that disappeared 6 years ago. The installed cameras captured several interesting moments. At night, and it is always night in the cave, sounds periodically came from the depths of the passage. Not barking, as on the tape recorder, but rather the scratching of claws on stone. One of the recordings shows a shadow passing across the bottom of the grotto. The image is blurry due to infrared filming, but the size of the object corresponds to a large four-legged animal. What is particularly interesting is that the shadow appears in the frame simultaneously at 3 different points. The cameras are installed at intervals of several tens of meters, but the objects move synchronously, as if coordinating their actions. Stone showed the recordings to his colleagues from the zoology department. Animal behavior specialists were unable to explain such coordination of movements. No known animal exhibits such behavior in its natural environment. Meanwhile, among rangers and local speleologists, the area has been, unofficially named Cerberus Passage. This was a reference to the mythological 3-headed dog that guarded the entrance to the underworld in ancient Greece. The name seemed appropriate. The multi-voiced barking on the recording, the 3 identical bites on the objects found, the 3 shadows moving in sync on the surveillance cameras. Everything that was happening pointed to the presence of 3 creatures acting as one. But what were these creatures? No one could give a reasonable answer to this question. By the summer of 2024, Dr. Stone had obtained permission to install additional cameras in the farthest reaches of the passage. He placed one of them behind the siphon, where the damaged helmets had been found. On August 12th, the camera captured something no one expected to see. At 3:27 a.m., a large 4-legged creature entered the frame. It was the size of a wolf, but with a more massive build. It had an elongated snout, erect ears, and a long tail. A few minutes later, 2 more animals appeared. All 3 moved cautiously, sniffing the air. Their eyes glowed bright white in the camera's infrared light. The creatures approached the place where the helmets were lying. One of them picked up an aluminum flask in its mouth and began to squeeze its jaws. The metal deformed with a grinding sound, which was recorded by the camera's microphone. Then all 3 animals raised their muzzles and simultaneously made the same sound, a low growl that turned into a bark. The sound was identical to the recording on Anna's dictaphone. After that, the creatures disappeared into the depths of the passage as silently as they had appeared. Stone immediately reported the recording to the park management. But when a group of rangers arrived at the filming location the next day, the camera was gone. All that remained was a severed cable and several deep scratches on the rock. Stone managed to save a copy of the recording on his personal device, but the park administration strictly prohibited its distribution. It was officially announced that research in this section of the cave had been completed, and the results were classified for security reasons. The right passage from the triple crossroads was sealed with a metal grate. Access is now prohibited not only to tourists, but also to scientific groups. Officially, this is due to the instability of the geological structures. Dr. Stone resigned from the university and no longer gives interviews about his research in Mammoth Cave. The surveillance camera recordings have disappeared from all official archives. The case of the 3 missing tourists has been officially closed. The final report states that the group drowned as a result of an accident and an underground current carried away their bodies.